Hello, friends, and welcome to our Sunday streaming services. If you're with us on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to get notifications when we have new videos. If you're with us on Zoom, hi, drop a hello in the chat. We would love to say hello back to you. And if this is your first time here, go ahead and sign the guest book at oakcliffuu.org/guest. Today's sermon is Unpacking the Baggage of Dualism, the Power of Either Or with Paul Fucile. All right, let's get started with a message from Scott. Hello, Scott, recording me. All right, so apparently there are very specific technical thingamajiggy-aroos happening on the website. And though I may not understand exactly what they are, what they add up to is this. New website, yay! I know that excites quite a bit of you. There are some very vocal people who do not like the website. And now, guess what? This is your time to shine. All right. If you have criticisms of the website, constructive criticisms of the website, thank you, then let us know what they are. What don't you like? Is there another site where you go, wow, this site is so great. I wish that we could replicate some of these things. Whatever it is you do or do not like, let us know what they are so that we can build this site better than ever. Please send those suggestions and constructive criticism to communications@oakcliffuu.org. The more specific, the better. So if you've got a screenshot of the thing that you don't like or a screenshot of the thing that you do like, that would be excellent. Otherwise, a detailed description would be really helpful. So just send those to Scott. Let him know what you want and what you don't want. Very exciting, right? New website. Yay. All right, Workday Wednesdays are back and happening every Wednesday from 5 to 7. They are outdoors right now so that we can stay safe. So if you are able to come help beautify our campus and keep it beautiful, because we know that we have a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous grounds, then please show up between 5 and 7 on Wednesday. All right, here we go. The big one. Are you ready for a super fun fundraiser? I know that you are. It's about that time, right? You're getting itchy for new fundraisers, I can tell. This one's fun. The worship team is putting it on. They need some extra funds for our amazing speakers. So this is happening on Valentine's Day or the week of Valentine's Day. So find something special for a special someone or work on spring cleaning. How are you going to do that? It's an auction. Auction. We always have fun with these auctions, always get some good stuff. I know that Sherry, you are here and you have a gorgeous thing. I think it's your screen. I know that you got that from the auction. I've got some things from the auction a couple of years ago. This is great. And this one is even better because it's twice as long as usual, not just one of those one-day things that we've got or two-day things. I think this is a whole week actually. Yay! So what do we need from you? We need your stuff. First of all, if you would like to donate something, we would love to have it. If you have a service, because we always have services that get donated, very fun, exciting stuff, and art, crafts, things sitting around the house that have some sentimental value, but just maybe aren't quite doing it for your decor anymore. If you have any of those, then send us a picture of what you would like to donate along with a very good description. The description is important because you know who knows this object better than anyone? You do. Tell us why it's special. Tell us what is so amazing. Tell us why people should be bidding on this fantastic item or service. Send all of that to fundraisers@oakcliffuu.org. Now, say that you're an artist or a craftsperson, or you are donating a service. You have a store somewhere, you have a business. Why don't we help you with that? All right. So in your description, if you go ahead and put a link to your website or your Etsy store, what have you, then let's say you have a wonderful service and I want to bid on it, or a gorgeous craft that I really want and I get outbid. Guess what? I can still go to your store and buy it afterwards. So win-win for everybody. Let's help each other out. We are a family and a community. Put the link to your store in the description and we will promote it for you. Right? Super fun. So yes, The deadline for everything is February 13th, and that doesn't mean send in the description on February 13th. That means we have to have absolutely everything so that we can get started on the 14th. All right, help us make this so successful. It's always a lot of fun. I am already perusing things that I am going to donate. None of those are special. Those are mine. Y'all can't have them. All right, please check the e-blast for absolutely everything. You know that it's got everything that you need in it, all of this information and more. Today is Sunday. We have Talkback at 11:15. If you want more than that, we have Discord all week long. And now it is that time. It has been a hot minute since we've had a member anniversary, and today we have 2. That's right. Very, very exciting. Everybody, give a happy UUCOC anniversary to Dee and Ed Stofko. Yay! Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary to you two and to everybody else out there. One, I hope that Mercury is not retrograding you the way that it is me, because all of my technology is not working right now. So I hope that you have a very happy Mercury retrograde and a very happy Sunday. Bye.
Welcome. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff. Thank you for having the curiosity and courage to join us. We welcome you, whoever you are, whatever spiritual tradition, gender, age, race, sexual orientation, or background you may bring to our community. We hope you will find here comfort, connection, challenge, respect, and above all, love.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness.
Que esta luz que ahora encendemos nos inspire a usar nuestros dones y poderes para sanar y no para herir, para ayudar y no para impedir, para bendecir y no para maldecir, para servirte a ti, espíritu de amor, compasión y perdón.
To Remember Our Promises by Sarah C. Stewart. Bring who you are as you enter our church this morning. Bring your best self and your struggling self. Bring your mistakes and your triumphs. Bring your shortcomings and your recommitment to good. Bring yourself here and open your heart to beauty, to truth, to the door that is open to the presence of God. Here in this church, we are trying to walk together on the peaceable way, trying to hammer out division and hatred and all that separates one from another. We try, and we will fall short, but held in love, we try again. We come together this morning as a church to bow our heads in prayer, to raise our voices in song, to remember our promises, and vow to live by them once again.
We are gathered in the Spirit, our bodies are apart, filled with joy and touched with wonder, separate hands but mingled hearts, giving thanks and singing praises for the love that calls us on from our many different places. We are gathered into one. We are gathered in our sorrow. We are gathered in our fear, in our pain and in our worry, in our anger and our tears, as we tend to one another with our gifts and justice, acts of kindness, bless the world and heal our souls. As our voices join together, may our song of peace resound. May we offer in abundance all the grace that we have found.
Please join me in affirming our covenant to one another. Because we love one another, we honor each individual's spiritual journey. We celebrate life's abundance and service to each other, our community, and the world. We connect with each other in love, respect, and acceptance. Thus do we covenant together.
And now in Spanish. Porque nos amamos uno al otro, honoramos el viaje espiritual de cada individuo. Celebramos la abundancia de la vida en el servicio a entre sí, nuestra comunidad y el mundo. Ponemos en contacto a unos con otros en el amor, respeto y acepción, así que hacemos pacto.
In our community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another, our joys and sorrows. We do this because each person in this community has value. Each person's experience matters. We share our sorrow with one another today, knowing that sorrow comes into each person's life. Knowing that together, we offer comfort. At this time, we invite you to publicly post your sorrows and prayer requests to the Zoom chat or send them to our Facebook Messenger.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
We also share our joys with one another, knowing that joy comes into all our lives, knowing that joy calls unto joy, knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. At this time, we invite you to publicly post your joys and prayer requests to the Zoom chat or send them to our Facebook Messenger.
Spirit of light, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirs of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life a shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Hello all. Today, despite what our announcement might say, our title is The Power of Duality, Part 1. So as we grow, we also obviously psychologically develop. Considering that our first 9 months for most of us are spent in a cocoon of everything we could possibly need. Love, and nourishment and all of the things that happen within the womb. I don't know about the other stuff. I'm not that knowledgeable. So after birth, pretty much everything can be traumatic, not necessarily traumatizing, where it has a long-term negative effect, but traumatic, as it is counter to the first 9 months of our existence. Heck, some argue that birth itself can be a traumatic experience. Every new experience as a child has the opportunity to be traumatic and consequently traumatizing. Again, no more cocoon. The difference here between traumatic and traumatizing, first, at the very least, is our attitude we have going into these unfamiliar experiences. And second is the coping mechanism we develop to adapt to this experience. Over the course of our lifetimes, we often unconsciously and psychologically develop these two things, attitude and coping mechanisms. And they often reinforce one another, not just themselves, but one another. The environment we grow in more often than not dictates these two psychological factors, attitude and coping mechanisms. If we come from a long line, for example, if we come from a long line of people pleasers, people pleasing is an adaptation to avoid confrontation, then this is a coping mechanism of people pleasing. The attitude is that confrontations are bad and generally do not psychologically or literally resolve the issues at hand. Then chances are, then we too develop this psychological habit of people pleasing, of which turns into a pattern over the course of time. There are countless other examples of these attitudes and coping mechanisms. Some are rebels. Some are, those are the two that come to mind, people pleasing and rebels. You're sort of polar opposites. So cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the main ways modern psychology unearths these patterns in us and then replaces them with healthy psychological habits to better adapt to the world around us that is constantly changing long after we've left the womb. I mean, it's not like we hit 25, 30, or even 40 and so on, and the world all of a sudden just stops showing us new experiences. I mean, we've done it all by the time we hit 40. We should know what to do next. And we should all of a sudden know how to adapt to it. But we do continue to use these habits and patterns we developed 25, 30, 40 years ago to adapt to these new situations that have come 25, 30, 40 years after. And that's problematic that we get hung up on that. So I'm going to kind of start at the end, at the beginning. So as you go into your next week, I have some questions I want you to ask yourselves to help you identify your patterns. Now, the questions apply to your relationships. Whenever we engage with anything, we develop a relationship with it. So we're not just talking about your relationships with people, talking about your relationships with situations, with places, and with things. So while I might use a person as an example, all of those categories apply here to these questions. When you encounter this relationship, do you feel like you're in survival mode? More importantly, can this thing you're in a relationship say or offer to save you? When you encounter this relationship, do you feel competitive? When you encounter this relationship, do you feel like you are growing? And if you are, what's the cost of that growth? When you encounter this relationship, is the picture of you limited by the situation? And are you consequently limiting yourself in response to it? Now, you might be asking yourself, Paul, what the heck does any of this have to do with duality and dualism? I thought you'd never ask. First, what is duality? What is dualism? In the least amount of terms, dualism is the understanding that a binary is the fundamental to all things, of all reality. In philosophy, we call it the a priori. It comes before all things, is the fundamental concept defining all reality. A priori, it is the category of all other categories. In modern civilization, the pervasive governing binary is good versus evil or bad. This is how we define morality, ethics, right versus wrong, justice and injustice, what is traumatic and what is not, and so on, that all the other categories fall within this one. The birth of dualism in modern civilization really intrigues me, and I would argue it begins with the birth of institutionalized Christianity in the Roman Empire at the turn of the Common Era. So what I'm saying is that at the beginning of modern civilization, you have the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire's institutionalizing of Christianity gives us the birth of dualism, and that gives dualism the force that it wields today. And we'll develop that argument throughout. So the birth of the Common Era, also, let me define some terms real quick here. The birth of the Common Era is one, and that's when we start counting forward in the historical calendar, whereas prior to that, historically, we count backwards. Also, another quick note here, I'm gonna just to define some terms. There is the early church Christianity, which is different than institutionalized Christianity. Early church Christianity is active approximately 200-300 years or so after the birth and death of Jesus, but before institutionalized Christianity, which happens around 300. which is when the Roman Empire adopts Christianity. Thus, it becomes institutionalized. Another quick note before I proceed. At this time, first century forward in the Roman Empire, there's no separation of church and state. Absolutely none. So we have to be real careful not to be anachronistic by putting our context into the historical ancient Roman Empire context. Despite the fact that you will undoubtedly see similarities as I go forward. Now, I noted that the beginning of Western civilization begins at 1 CE, or 1 Common Era, or the birth of Jesus. Yes, that is a monumentous indicator of how pervasive institutionalized Christianity has been historically and still is to the present, impacting our everyday lives. Prior to this time, the vast majority of the Roman Empire was Greek pagan or Greek-Roman pagan. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So you have the god of Zeus and the gods and goddesses Zeus and Athena, and so on. I say so on because the emphasis here is vital in the so on. To understand the impact of dualism, we have to understand that before dualism, the categories were much more broad. Dualism, which thrives on an either-or understanding, was far too small for the pantheon of Greek-Roman gods and goddesses. While we mark 1 CE with the birth of Jesus, there were many more things at work and at foot in the empire that marked the birth of civilization. Namely, the empire was pushing beyond boundaries that just decades before, people didn't even know existed. At the peak of the empire, it extended to the modern tip of Great Britain, right? You have the southern tip of Italy. You have the west coast of Spain and Egypt. And then in the east, you had past the Middle East into the southern regions of Germany and Russia. So how is this working? How did the Roman Empire accomplish this? The Roman Empire was alliance builders. Now, if you've read the book Sapiens, you understand that this alliance building began long before modern civilization. Now, don't get me wrong, the Roman Empire were undoubtedly conquerors. Much of this land was won through bloody battle. Yet, once a land was conquered, the Romans moved into the territory, built alliances with the people, oftentimes adopting their culture and customs, such as how we see the Greek gods and goddesses become Roman gods and goddesses. And in turn, the Romans offered the people citizenship, incorporating them into their army and protecting them from what was perceived as more savage conquerors. This exchange was often considered progress for tribal and feudal territories that were constantly on guard with the original birth. This then begins the original birth of globalization. Now, the trope of today, because we can see what's happening here, the trope of today then is quite old. And yet at the same time, many who had long-standing cultures and customs. So while it was perceived as progress for those who had well-established cultures, customs, faith, and religions, this impending regime, the Roman Empire, was oppressive and often limiting. So, cue Jesus. Now, oddly enough, as I proceed, what happens next in history has very little to do with religion or faith. Jesus was a thorn in the empire, and the empire made a thorn in his crown. So now cue the birth of early church Christianity. As I said before, the birth of early church Christianity grew and developed over the next 300 years or so, raising house churches, letter writers, historians, and die-hard followers. In the empire, they martyred them one after the other until roughly the year 325 CE. The Emperor Constantine received a vision from the Christian God on a horse ride home from a hard-fought colonization battle. This vision was the catalyst that led to the adoption of institutionalized Christianity by the Roman Empire. While the developments that followed for at least the next 500 years of the empire are so very intriguing, they really are intriguing. I'd love to delve into them with you all. At this point, it will have suffice it to say, the rule of this seismic shift to institutionalized Christianity, again, no separation of church or state, was get on board or go hide. Get out wasn't an option. Now let's recall our pantheon of gods and goddesses. They had been the model of the empire for nearly 2,000 years. Yes, nearly the same amount of time that has passed since Jesus' birth. And should any one of us try to fathom a time when roads were paved, we can imagine how long 2,000 years, that's how long you have Greek-Roman rule, Greek-Roman gods and goddesses in the Roman Empire at this particular time. But the pantheons of gods and goddesses weren't going to do, and especially with the institutionalized Christianity. So why the move to institutionalized Christianity? Why was that so advantageous? Honestly, or at least in my opinion and some scholars' opinions, Christianity was so much more politically manageable. One God, one good, and everything that was counter that God was consequently bad. Not only that, this one God was transcendental and new. Transcendental and new. There's not a lot of history. 300 years seems like a long time to us, but time moves so much slower at this particular point that 300 years was there. You had your church houses and things like that, but there was nothing on a macro scale that gave a unifying narrative to Christianity at this point when Constantine comes in and does what I call cultural colonization of Christianity and makes it the state church. So a transcendental God was it was a perfect tool. So it was easy to construct a God that supported and served Roman rule. Now, I want you to listen carefully. Roman Empire rule became synonymous with Catholic Church. The Catholic Church became synonymous with the Christian God. Empire, Church, God. This was the real trinity of the times. Now, I could see the gray area well enough to separate the faith and religion from the politics. And what's really happening here is politics. I'm not talking about the faith or religion. And again, this is a time when you have major the first globalization of the world, as many of these lands had never even been discovered before. So when the empire and the church and the Christian God defined what is good, this is what we call today God's infallible word. It reinforced itself from all sides. And it provided safety and security through salvation. So those that were feeling oppressed and limited now had a voice. Now, consequently, there were those who didn't have a voice. But that's where you get this Roman cultural colonization that comes in and marries them together, so that you have pagan rituals that marry with Christianity. So it makes the shift far more manageable and too popular because everybody's happy. And it provided safety and security. And the effect was real. It was life or death, safety and security versus feudal fatality. So a lot of people saw real progress in the sense that they got to take part in this progressive movement. The world was becoming bigger. They got to have a greater impact in their society. And they had Roman rule protection. So when you had the barbarians coming in from the north, you have that protection. And like I said, the Roman Empire was alliance builders. They didn't just take over, they incorporated, they enmeshed. They were textbook narcissists. They conquered territories, peoples, religions, and the people didn't know what they were before they were empire. And they surely thought they were better for the empire. And the empire, well, they had a new tool, a real double-edged sword, if you will. One side good, the other side bad. A transcendental God, well, that meant they could swing the sword and no one could blame them. Fast forward, that sword's still swinging with 2,000 years plus of force and practice behind it. And more than half of the entire world's population, not just the ancient empire's population, but 2.5 billion people are swinging that sword. Now, we've talked about dualism on this macro scale, and sadly, that's really all we're going to have time to talk about today. And it's easy to talk about dualism on this macro scale because we can look at it, we can point at it, we can say 2.5 billion people real easily. And we can understand that dualistic view. We can look at it and we say, that's it. And we can see that it divides into either good or bad. And we can swing that sword ourselves, and we often do, to the world outside of us. And we can swing it and we can say, good or bad, what side are you on? We cast this judgment every single day on a macro scale and even a micro scale in our communities. But there's this real micro scale that I'm really curious about. So on that real micro scale, we have to understand that this a priori, this category, is before all categories. There is a binary, a dualistic category, this good versus evil, that comes before all the other categories. The categorical a priori is the beginning that casts the rest of reality into a binary. No, not just a binary, but into the binary. So all the other binaries we hold fit into this good versus bad binary. Does that make sense? And so then it's easy to look at that on a macro scale. What happens when we put that on a micro scale? If we're casting that sword to the world external of us, then that same binary gaze, that same dualistic gaze, that same sword is being cast inside of us. We're using it on ourselves. So, as I've said, a little bit just briefly a minute ago, I love to go on about this micro scale, but I don't think we have time today. So I want you to think back to the questions from the beginning and ask yourself, what do those questions have to do with this dualistic understanding of good versus bad? And how does this binary gaze, this dualistic gaze, fit into those questions? How is your attitude and your coping mechanisms impacted by this dualistic gaze? And then next time, I'll definitely will address that micro scale a whole lot more. But for now, thank you for having me today. I look forward to our discussion and talk back. And I'll see you next time.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Today, as you make your pledge or offering to support this community, let the words of Heather Christensen inspire you to generosity, individually and together. Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is embodied in a few large congregations, numerous mid-sized congregations, and many, many small congregations. No matter its size, every congregation depends on each of its members. Each one of you, by your commitment of time, energy, and resources, helps make that grand vision real. Individually and together, we are Unitarian Universalists, building a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy.
Receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy, así compartimos y vivimos hoy. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy.
Blessed by Our Connections by Susan Carlson. We leave blessed by our connections to one another, to the Spirit of life. Walk lightly, that you see the life that is below your feet. Spread your arms as if you had wings and could dance through the air. Feel the joy of the breath in your lungs and the fire in your heart. Live to love and be a blessing on this earth.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez.
Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all true, its ritual works of love. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love.